My name is Waverly Palmer. I'm 32 years old. Last week, I showed up to my sister's wedding with a $10,000 gift. That took me 3 years to save. And before I even stepped inside, they handed me a gray badge. Limited access. No seat, no table, no meal. Just a quiet reminder that I didn't belong there. My own mother leaned in, smiled for the guests, and whispered, "That means no plate for you, Waverly." 3 years of saving, skipping vacations, wearing the same coat until the lining tore. All for that moment. And in less than 10 seconds, they erased me. But here's what they didn't expect. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I walked straight to the gift table, picked up my envelope, and said 5 words that made my mother's face turn white in front of 150 guests. What happened next wasn't just embarrassing. It changed everything about my family, forever. Before I tell you how it all unfolded, take a second to subscribe so you don't miss what comes next, especially if you've ever felt invisible in your own family. And tell me this, what would you do if the people who raised you only wanted your money, but not you? Because what I did next, no one in that room saw coming. To understand why that moment at the gift table mattered so much, you need to understand something first. I wasn't just forgotten that day. I had been disappearing my entire life. On paper, my family looked perfect. My father, Gerald Palmer, spent 35 years working as a mechanical engineer. Steady, reliable. The kind of man who believed silence was the same thing as peace. My mother, Patricia, was warm, charming. The kind of woman who could walk into a room and have everyone smiling within minutes. And then there was my sister, Miranda, 3 years older than me, Harvard MBA investment banker, the kind of daughter people brag about without even trying. She was the reason my parents smiled wider in photos, the reason conversations always circled back to success. And then there was me, Waverly, a mid-level accountant, living in a small studio apartment in Queens, with a window that looked directly at a brick wall. No Ivy League degree, no impressive title, no story worth repeating at dinner parties. Growing up, I learned something very early. Love in our house wasn't unconditional. It was measured in achievements, in appearances, in how well you fit, the version of success my mother wanted the world to see. And I never quite fit. I remember one Christmas, there was a family photo taken in our living room. My parents, standing beside Miranda, all dressed perfectly, smiling like they had everything they ever wanted. That photo sat on our mantle for years. There was just one small detail. I wasn't in it. At the time, I asked my mother why. She smiled, that same soft, effortless smile, and said, "The frame was too small, sweetheart, too small to fit me." I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself a lot of things didn't matter back then. But there are moments that stay with you, even when you try to forget them. Like my high school graduation. It was supposed to be one of the biggest days of my life. I had worked hard, honor roll, part-time job, saving money just to buy my own prom dress. I wasn't extraordinary, but I was proud. The ceremony started at 2 o'clock. By 2:47, I walked across the stage, shook the principal's hand, and looked out into the crowd. Every seat filled, except the 2 that were supposed to be mine. My parents weren't there. They were 300 miles away, touring a graduate school campus with Miranda. When I asked my mother about it later, she said, "Your sister's future is time-sensitive. You'll have other graduations." I didn't. The only person who showed up for me that day was my Aunt Diane. She drove 2 hours just to sit in the 3rd row and clap louder than anyone else in that room. After the ceremony, she took me out to dinner, a small Italian place Nothing fancy, but she looked at me like I mattered, like I was someone worth celebrating. And before we left, she reached across the table and said something I didn't understand at the time. "They don't see you yet, Waverly." I spent years holding on to that word. Yet, as if one day, something would change. As if one day, they'd finally look at me and realize I had been there all along. So I tried harder. I stayed quiet when I wanted to speak. I gave more when I had less. I showed up even when no one noticed, because I believed something that a lot of us believe for far too long, that if you just love people enough, they'll love you back the same way. But the truth is, some people don't change, no matter how much you give them. And sometimes you don't realize that until the moment they ask for everything and still treat you like nothing. And that moment was coming. 6 months before the wedding, my phone buzzed with a message in the family group chat. A group chat I was technically part of, but rarely included in. Miranda had sent a photo, her hand stretched out against a backdrop of soft city lights. A diamond ring catching just enough glow to make sure everyone noticed. Jonathan proposed. Wedding planning starts now. Jonathan Whitmore III. I had met him twice. Once at a dinner where he talked about golf the entire night, and once at a birthday party where he didn't acknowledge me at all. His family was old money, the kind of people who didn't just have wealth. They had history, connections, reputation, a last name that opened doors before they even knocked. My mother replied within seconds, "My baby, this is the happiest day of my life." My father sent a thumbs-up emoji. I stared at the screen, typed a message, deleted it, typed another, deleted that too, before finally settling on something simple. "Congratulations, Miranda. I'm happy for you." No one replied. 2 weeks later, the invitation arrived. Heavy paper, gold lettering, elegant, expensive, deliberate. I held it in my hands for a long time. And somewhere in that moment, I made a decision. This time would be different. I wouldn't just show up. I would matter. So the next morning, I opened a savings account. I named it Wedding Gift. At first, it felt almost ridiculous. I wasn't making a lot of money, $52,000 a year before taxes in New York City. Every dollar already had a purpose, but I told myself, if I could give something meaningful, something undeniable, maybe, just maybe, they would finally see me differently. So I started cutting back. No more lunches out, coffee made at home, no trips, no weekends away, not even small ones. When my winter coat started to fall apart, I stitched it back together myself. Month after month, I watched that number grow, slowly, painfully, but steadily. Every dollar felt like proof that I was trying, proof that I cared, proof that I belonged. 3 years later, that account reached $10,000. $10,000. It wasn't just money, it was time, sacrifice, every small thing I said no to, so I could say yes to this one moment. 3 weeks before the wedding, I went to the bank and asked for a cashier's check. The teller smiled, asked if I wanted an envelope. I said yes. Then I went home, sat at my small kitchen table, and wrote a letter. "Dear Miranda, I hope this helps you build a beautiful life. Wishing you happiness, always. Love, Waverly." I read it twice, then sealed it. And for a second, I just sat there, holding it, because somewhere deep down, there was a quiet voice asking a question I didn't want to hear. Would this finally be enough? That night, my mother called. Her voice was bright, almost too bright. "Waverly, have you gotten your gift yet?" I hesitated. "I have." "Well, I was thinking." She paused, just long enough to sound casual. "You could send the money to me now, and I'll combine it with our gift. It'll look more appropriate." Appropriate. I tightened my grip on the phone. I'd rather give it myself. Silence. Then, a small sigh. Fine, whatever you want. She hung up. No goodbye, no warmth, just that subtle shift. Like I had made the wrong choice, without even knowing why. Looking back now, that was the moment I should have understood. That this wasn't about the gift. It was about control, about appearances, about making sure everything and everyone fit into the image my mother had already created. And I didn't fit. I never had. But I still believed that the wedding day would be different. That when they saw what I had done, what I had given, they would finally see me. I didn't realize then. They had already decided exactly where I belonged. 3 weeks before the wedding, I realized something was wrong. Not all at once, just small things, little details that didn't quite add up. It started with the bridal shower. Miranda hosted it at a luxury hotel in Manhattan. Champagne, designer gifts, a room full of women who looked like they belonged in a different world than mine. I wasn't asked to help plan it. I wasn't even told about it until the invitation showed up. And when I got there, they sat me at a corner table with strangers. Not family, not friends, just people who needed to fill seats. I remember sitting there, smiling politely, while my mother stood at the front of the room, giving a speech. She talked about Miranda's achievements, her intelligence, her career, her future. 7 minutes, 7 full minutes, and she never mentioned me. Not once. Not even a simple, and thank you to Waverly for being here. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself this was Miranda's day. But then, something happened that I couldn't ignore. I went to the restroom to fix my makeup. I had been holding back tears, and I didn't want anyone to notice. That's when I heard voices from one of the stalls. My mother and my Aunt Harriet. They didn't know I was there. Thank God you didn't make her a bridesmaid, Harriet said. A pause. Then my mother laughed. Soft, light. Oh, I know. Can you imagine Jonathan's family would start asking questions? What does she even do again? Another pause. She's an accountant, my mother replied. The word sounded smaller when she said it, like something she needed to explain away. We can't have anything distracting, she added. Distracting. I stood there, frozen, staring at my reflection in the mirror, mascara slightly smudged, trying to understand how I had become something to hide. Not a daughter, not a sister, a problem, an inconvenience, something that didn't match the image I should have left right then. But I didn't, because hope is a difficult thing to let go of. A week before the wedding, I received an email from the wedding planner. The subject line read, Final Rehearsal Dinner List. I opened it casually, scrolling through the names. Bridesmaids, groomsmen, parents, extended family, even a few friends who weren't related at all. I read the list once, then again, then a third time, slower. My name wasn't there. At first, I thought it was a mistake, so I called my mother. Mom, I didn't get an invitation to the rehearsal dinner. A pause. Then her voice, careful. Oh, Waverly. It's only for immediate family. Immediate family. I felt something tighten in my chest. I am immediate family. You know what I mean, she said quickly. Jonathan's parents are very particular about numbers. I pulled the list back up. Miranda's friend Jessica is on here. She's a bridesmaid. So I don't count at all. Waverly? Her tone changed, sharpened. Don't make this difficult. There it was. The line I had heard my entire life. The moment where my feelings became the problem. Okay, I said quietly. I understand. And I hung up. But I didn't understand. Not yet. That came 2 nights before the wedding. At 11:47 p.m., my phone rang. It was Sophie, my best friend from college, and, by some strange twist of fate, the event planner for Miranda's wedding. Her voice wasn't calm. Waverly? I need you to stay calm, okay? My stomach dropped. What is it? She hesitated. I was reviewing the seating chart tonight. Final check. And your name was there. 2 weeks ago. My heart started pounding. What do you mean? It's been crossed out, she said quietly. With a pen. I couldn't breathe. There's a note next to it. My voice barely came out. What does it say? Silence. Then, limited access. No meal. The words didn't feel real, like they belonged to someone else's story. Are you sure? I took a photo, she said. I'm sending it to you now. My phone buzzed. I opened the image, and there it was. Clear, undeniable, neat handwriting. I had seen my entire life. My mother's. Limited access guest. No meal. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a plan. Carefully made. Quietly executed. She didn't just forget about me. She removed me. And still expected me to show up. To smile. To hand over $10,000. And disappear. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a minute. But by morning, something inside me had changed. The confusion was gone. The hope was gone. And in its place, there was something else. Something colder. Something clearer. For the first time in my life, I wasn't asking how to be enough. I was asking something very different. What happens when you finally stop trying to belong somewhere that never wanted you there in the first place? The morning of the wedding, I woke up strangely calm, not peaceful, just clear, like something inside me had already made the decision. Before I even opened my eyes, I stood in front of my closet and chose my dress carefully. Simple, navy blue, not too bold, not too forgettable. The kind of dress you wear when you don't want to draw attention, but you still want to be seen. I did my makeup slowly, light, controlled. Nothing that would betray me if I lost control later. Then I sat at my kitchen table and gathered everything. The screenshot of my mother asking for the money early. The photo Sophie sent me of the seating chart. The note in my mother's handwriting. Limited access, no meal. And finally, the envelope, $10,000. 3 years of my life, sealed inside a piece of paper. I placed it all in my clutch, took a breath, and walked out the door. The estate was exactly what you'd expect. White columns, perfect gardens, cars that cost more than my yearly salary. Everything polished. Everything intentional. At the entrance, there was a table, staff members handing out badges, gold ones, for guests who mattered. I watched as people smiled, pinned them on, and walked in without question. Then it was my turn. Name, Waverly Palmer. He checked the list, then reached under the table. When his hand came back up, it was gray. Not gold. Gray. Limited access, he said politely. Ceremony only. For a second, I just stared at it, like if I looked long enough, it might change. It didn't. A hand touched my arm. My mother? Perfect smile, perfect posture. Let's not make a scene, she whispered. What does this mean? I asked. Her voice dropped. It means there's no room for you at the reception. No room. For me. At my sister's wedding. You want me to leave my gift and go home. Don't be dramatic, she said softly. Just do the right thing. The right thing. I looked at her, really looked at her, and something inside me finally settled. Okay, I said. She relaxed immediately. She thought she had won. She had no idea what I was about to do. I sat through the ceremony in the last row, a different chair, cheaper, separate, in a way no one else could see. I watched Miranda walk down the aisle. Beautiful, perfect, everything my mother had ever wanted. And when the ceremony ended, everyone stood. Applause, laughter, music. And then they all turned and walked toward the reception, toward the part I wasn't allowed to enter. No one looked back, not once. I stood there for a moment, alone. Then I turned and walked in the opposite direction, toward the gift table. It was exactly where Sophie said it would be, covered in silk, surrounded by expensive boxes. And somewhere inside, my envelope. I found it immediately. My name, written in my own handwriting. I picked it up, calm, steady. like it had always belonged in my hand, because it did. That's when I heard her voice. "Waverly, what are you doing?" My mother, sharp, controlled. But there was something else now. Fear. "I'm taking back my gift," I said. "You can't do that." "I can." My voice didn't shake. Not even a little. "It hasn't been given yet." Guests nearby had started to notice. Small glances, whispers, attention, spreading. "Put it back," she hissed. "Number." And then I felt something press into my hand. Sophie, passing by, not looking at me, but leaving something behind. The note. Proof. I held it inside my clutch. And for the first time, I didn't feel small. A voice cut through the tension. "Is everything all right here?" We both turned. Jonathan's mother. Elegant. Composed. Watching everything. My mother smiled quickly. "Just a small misunderstanding." I stepped forward. "No, it's not." The room seemed to still. "I was invited to this wedding as the bride's sister," I said. "And given this." I held up the gray badge. "Limited access. No meal." Murmurs. Louder now. "I saved $10,000 for this," I continued. 3 years. For a wedding I wasn't even allowed to sit down at. My mother's face lost all color. "Waverly, stop." "Number." I reached into my clutch and pulled out the note, because this wasn't a mistake. I handed it over. "Your handwriting." Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Jonathan's mother read it slowly, then looked up, cold. Precise. "You excluded your own daughter." My mother opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "I think we need to reconsider what kind of family we've just joined," she said quietly. That was it. That was the moment everything shifted. I looked at my mother, at Miranda, standing frozen behind her, at the crowd, watching everything. "You wanted my money," I said softly, "but you didn't want me." And for the first time, they had no way to deny it. For a moment, no one moved. The music had stopped. The conversations, gone. 150 people, standing in silence, watching something that was never supposed to be seen. My mother's world, cracking, right in front of them. Then Miranda stepped forward, her voice shaking. "Waverly, what are you doing?" I looked at her, really looked at her, not as the perfect daughter, not as the person my parents chose over me, but just a sister. And for a second, I almost felt something like sadness. "This was my gift to you," I said quietly. I held up the envelope, just slightly. 3 years of saving, for a wedding I wasn't allowed to be part of. Her expression shifted. Confusion, then discomfort, then something else, something closer to fear. "That's not what this is," she said quickly. "Then what is it?" She didn't answer, because she couldn't, because the truth was standing right there, in front of everyone. "You knew," I said, not loud, just clear. "You saw me at the entrance. You saw the badge, and you walked past me." Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't know what to do, and there it was. Not denial, not apology, just hesitation, just choosing not to choose me. "I do," I said softly. I slid the envelope back into my clutch. "I'm taking this back." "You can't just walk out," she said. "This is my wedding." I nodded. "I know, and I'm not ruining it." I paused, then added, "I'm just refusing to disappear in it." I turned, and this time, I didn't hesitate. I walked away. Behind me, everything unraveled. Voices rising, my mother crying, people whispering. The kind of chaos you can't hide behind flowers and music. But I didn't stop. Not until I reached the edge of the estate. A hand touched my shoulder. Aunt Diane. She had been there the entire time. "I'm proud of you," she said gently. And something inside me finally broke. Not from pain, from release. We walked together toward the exit, toward the road, toward something that felt unfamiliar. Freedom. The taxi was already waiting. I had called it that morning, just in case. Maybe some part of me always knew. We got in. The door closed. And for the first time that day, everything went quiet. The car pulled away slowly. The estate, shrinking behind us. White columns, Perfect gardens. A world I had spent my entire life trying to fit into and failed. I stared out the window, waiting to feel something: anger, relief, victory. But what I felt instead was emptiness, heavy, exhausting, like I had been holding something for years and had just finally let it go. What happens now? I asked quietly. Aunt Diane reached over and took my hand. Now, she said, you start your life. We had barely made it down the road when another car pulled in front of us. Fast, sudden, forcing us to stop. The door flew open. Miranda, still in her wedding dress, running toward us, desperate. You have to come back, she said, breathless. You have to fix this. I rolled down the window slowly. There's nothing to fix. Yes, there is, she said. Everyone's asking questions. Jonathan's family. Mom. She's falling apart. I watched her carefully. For the first time, she didn't look perfect. She looked lost. I'll make it right, she said quickly. You can come back. We'll say it was a mistake. A mistake. I let that word sit between us. Then I shook my head. This wasn't a mistake. It was complicated. No, I said gently. It was a choice. Her eyes filled again. I'm your sister. I nodded. Yes, and you chose not to act like it. Silence. She had no answer, because there wasn't one. Go back to your wedding, I said softly. They're waiting for you. I rolled the window up, and this time, I didn't look back. If you step back from this story and look at it not just as a moment, but as a pattern, you begin to see something deeper. This was never really about a wedding, or a seat at a table, or even $10,000. This was about something far more common and far more painful: the experience of being unseen by the very people who were supposed to know you best. In psychology, there's a concept often referred to as conditional belonging. It means you are accepted, but only when you meet certain expectations, when you succeed, when you fit the image, when you don't disrupt the story someone else is trying to tell. And when you don't, you're quietly pushed to the edges. Not always with cruelty. Sometimes with smiles, with polite explanations, with phrases like, don't make this difficult. Over time, people in that position begin to internalize something dangerous. They start to believe that if they just try harder, give more, stay quieter, they'll finally earn their place. But here's the truth. You cannot earn what was never freely given. And the moment Waverly walked to that gift table, she wasn't creating conflict. She was ending a pattern that had been reinforced for decades. That moment wasn't about revenge. It was about recognition, not from her family, but from herself. Because sometimes the most important shift in your life is not when others finally see you. It's when you stop waiting for them to. And that's a difficult thing to do, especially later in life, when habits, roles, and expectations have had years to settle in. But it is possible. And more importantly, it is necessary. So if you're listening to this, and part of the story feels familiar, maybe not in the details, but in the feeling, then consider this your quiet permission. You are allowed to step away from relationships that require you to shrink in order to stay. You are allowed to choose peace over approval, and you are allowed to finally take back what was always yours to begin with, your worth. If this story resonated with you, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. There are more stories like this, stories that don't just entertain, but help you understand the moments that shape who we become. And before you go, ask yourself one simple question. Where in your life have you been sitting at a table where you were never truly invited? Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is quietly stand up and walk away.